Hello, I'm Guillermo Martinez, and this time we're going to do frequently asked questions. This is our second one, and one of the questions was, how do you play a moon drum? So a moon drum is basically a double-sided drum like this one. Now this one has bison on both sides, so you'd have elk and bison, and it's something that happened for me quite a few years ago. I was working with drums, bison and elk at that time, and I had half of part of one drum was elk and the other was bison, and normally I would keep the heads the same for the same from the same animal on the drum, and on that occasion I went ahead and put it together, and I liked the way it looked, and it reminded me of the phases of the moon. So how do you play it? Well, you can go out and play during the full moon or new moon, and it's important to learn some songs, and those are easily acquired through social media. But how would you hold it? So you would have a drum like this will have a loop, and this is a very common type of drum. You see this type of drum very early on. I've seen some in the museums that date back over 200 years, and they have a loop like this. Typically, put your thumb through there. You would hold it this way, and you will, just like the other video I've done about drum. Depending on the size, this should have 3 tones. This is an 18. With the moon drum, you should have 2 different tones. So on the other side, you should have something that's a little bit different sounding, because I try to get skins that are different thicknesses, and that way you'll have basically 2 drums. One side should be higher and one should be lower. So that's how you play a moon drum. And once again, 18 will have 3 tones, 16 will have 2, 14 will have 2, and 12 as well. And another thing too, you have so use the dynamics of the drum for in your singing. And you can also use the rim as well, which is very impressive and very powerful. Okay, second question we have is how to store a drum in the winter time. Well, winter time is actually the time when you can have your drum out more, most of the time. You can have it out. I typically have a J hook like this one. See, it's the form of a J. You can just hang it up, and they'll be fine. From these, you can have it from the handle. The most difficult, the time that could be concerned is when it's really hot, when you have Santa Ana conditions. That's when you actually should take your drum, wrap it up in a blanket or some kind of a towel, and put it in the closet, or put it in a drawer where it won't be affected as much by the dryness. And that's your worst. And also, if you're in the winter, if you have a wood burning stove, you don't want to put your drum near a wood burning stove or any kind of heat source. Just a temperate part of the house. Basically, if you're going to be comfortable there, then the drum will be comfortable. Okay, back to frequently asked questions. One of the questions was about this horse flute, Shakanwakan, or sacred dog in Lakota. Horses were sacred. They were. It gave the native peoples bigger range of movement. They were able to cover more area, carry more, because before they used to use dogs and carry things on their backs or with travoises. But when you had a horse, once horses were introduced by the Spanish and other Europeans, they were it became a really important thing for native people. Not thing, but symbiotic relationship, or beautiful relationship between human and horses. And so they're out of this came horse societies, or people like that had special powers with or connections to horses. And this came around, you know, this flute. The beginnings of this flute started when I was at the Southwest Museum many years ago. I was exhibiting, and behind me in the case was a bunch of horse sticks, a collection of them. And this is my daughter's. I got it for her from a gentleman that made them. There were some like this, some were long, and you know they were typically have horse hair, and you know they have bells, and you know hair and feathers and beads. And this was who's filming right now. This is Tonali. This was hers when she was a baby, and the ears are broken, but it's still in pretty good shape. So I would say it's about 20 something years old. And so I took that concept and put it on the end of a flute. As far as I know, I haven't seen anyone doing this, but this is one of them. I do this in different styles with carved mane, bison mane, with horsehair, and always make them out of cedar. Each horse has his name, and they're also done in bright colors, what I would call ledger style, and where you know these horses are more of a mythical beings or spirit beings. This one I call Red Star. You know, it's got some symbols here representing hail and thunder and stars, and you know, I also have a collection of paintings in the shop. And so if I ever get a chance to get back to making these, there'll be some more coming out. And I'll go ahead and play this for you. Let's talk about this here, these four holes. Those are called the four winds. Now, the flute should be open, but this one's closed because you got this solid piece of wood. It's all one piece. This is all. So when I'm making these, you have to alternate, and then here will be a big block, and then I'll carve that into an effigy of some sort. You know, this one being a horse, of course. And you can see it has a bridle and feathers, just like the ones I've seen in the museum in the case. And I do want to bring a flute here up to see. This one is a raven, Northwest Coast raven. Now, as far as I know, they don't do flutes like this. And the very first one that I did was a collaboration with someone who just passed away about a month ago. His name was Jackie Timothy. He was Coast Salish. He's up there up in the north, and he just passed away. He was an important member of his community. You know, I got word, and you know, it made me think about. One day I was carving a flute, and he asked if he could, if I could make a flute, but just leave the end on for him, and he carved a raven on there. And I took it to the museum in San Francisco for an exhibition. And this woman that I guess she's a collector of Northwest Coast art, and she asked about it because she'd never seen anything like that. And she asked if she could purchase it, and so I sold it to her, and I gave Jackie his cut, and we were both happy. But somewhere in this world, there's that very first flute, that first raven flute, you know, collaboration between myself and Jackie Timothy, and you know. He was a good guy. I really liked him. He was very sweet and always thought about people. He was very generous, and we always had a good time working together. He was carving a canoe in Knott's Berry Farm many years ago. So I still do this flute in honor of him and my connection with the Northwest Coast people. So there you go. Okay. Third question, can people who play silver flute or classical flute transition to Native American flute? Absolutely yes. As you can see, this is a Chinese flute, but it's side blown, very much like a classical flute. I was trying to get this, getting 2 registers on this one. A register is like what they call a scale, complete scale. And if you blow a little harder, you can jump the flute another octave and continue up another scale. Native flutes don't do that, so and also that doesn't require much effort. The native flutes are far more relaxed when they're playing, more meditative. So those are the main differences, and also these typically are in a major. Native flutes are in a pentatonic minor. Native flutes can play octave in a third. That's kind of their general range. It'll vary a little bit from maker, but that's generally what you should get on a good Native American flute. So the only thing you have to do is get used to the fingering and the scale, and also learning how to relax and not blow so hard and not think so much. You have to quiet your mind, and I think that'll be the main things that you will encounter. But yes, definitely you're gonna have to unlearn some things that you learn on silver flute, and be more soulful, more aware of your playing, be able to free form or improvise more. So those are the main differences. But yeah, easy for sure. What flute has the highest pitch? Well, I mean, in theory, say we go in middle C, you can definitely, I make a D, I make an E, it comes right after that, I make an F sharp, you can go G and A, and then that's pretty high. Probably super high F sharp, which would be a tiny little flute. But I mean, as it gets smaller, the tolerances get much closer together, and there's less forgiveness. So those are really hard anything above high E is extremely hard to make, very difficult, and also hard to play because the holes get really close together. And so, I would say high F sharp, maybe high G or A, for practical reasons, is probably the highest you can get. When did I make my first flute? My first flute was a bamboo flute, and it was probably, let's see, about 40 years ago, something like that. It was a long time. Before I had children, that's for sure. Okay, that's a really good question. First of all, I don't like to use woods that are from the rainforest, or promote, hey, I'm going to take out this great beautiful tree because I want the root, because someone's going to pay me a lot of money for the root, and take out a beautiful old tree just for the roots. These burl woods, people from the jungles, and a lot of makers use them. Actually not very good wood for flutes because they're very porous, and you basically have to seal them with resin. So basically you're playing a plastic flute. Might as well just get a plastic flute, save the tree. And because a good flute, you want to get a good tone wood, and those are very sustainable, like yellow cedar. Comes from Alaska, Southeast Alaska. Takes a lot of water. There's plenty of them. Really good grain, aromatic. Works. Durable. Those are, for me, good qualities. I sometimes I don't understand people who want a flute made out of like really rare woods, that because you can take koa, Hawaiian koa, for example, which is endemic, meaning it's only from one place in the world, and it only grows there, and people were cutting it up for pallets, for furniture, for all kinds of things, and then it's a slow growing tree, and pretty soon there's none. Now only native Hawaiians are allowed to cut them, and we have to look for old stock, which is what I do. I look for old stuff, things that are maybe sitting around some guy's garage, or in a container somewhere, You know, I found a friend that found a whole container full of koa that's been there for like 30, 40 years, and the guy decided to sell it, and but you know, things like that. You know, or you know, if it's new wood, I try to get woods that are, you know, sourced sustainably. And there's an organization called CITES which governs this, and there's you know, they give certifications. So there's places that deal with that, and you know, now that that's in place, there's, you know, the trees have a better chance. But still, you know, why use woods that don't make good flutes? You know, maybe little pieces for decorative elements, but yeah, that's what I do. You know, I'm all about sustainability for sure. Do I take plant applications for an apprenticeship? Well, I've had apprentices here. Actually, above this space, right up here, is the loft, and that's where they would sleep. And I've had a few. You know, easily 5 or 6 by now that are all throughout the world, and you know, they make their instruments. You know, they get my blessings once they get to a certain level, and but once again, I have to see how that impacts my family, and you know, it can, because you have to eat with you, they have to, you know, have a place for them to sleep, and you know, shower, all that, you know. But not to say it's off the table, but it definitely has to be a good fit, and someone that's wants to do this for the love of the craft, not because, hey, I'm going to make a bunch of money. You know, it's a cool way to make money. You know, it has to be like a very passionate thing, because I didn't do this to get in to make money. I got in this because it's part of my heritage, and I was really passionate about learning it, and a lot of things that I do, I develop myself, and so yeah, those are all important things. Thank you for listening to me, and also through Instagram or my channel, wherever or Patreon, wherever this is going to go. You know, appreciate all the support that everyone's been showing, and you know, it's a beautiful thing when you can work out of your house, and you know, but I've created this space. So you know, I feel like I've worked for this, and but I'm still very grateful. You know, and I still continue to be blessed, and I appreciate everybody out there for the support. So thank you. Blessings.